Hi, I'm Kimberly Clark, Deputy Chief Information Officer here at Arizona State University, and today's host for a special edition of Carpool Convos. Throughout our series, we interview leaders, technologists, and experts to explore the future of tech and innovation. And we do so from the backseat of an autonomous car traveling around Greater Phoenix. Today, we'll pick up our featured guest, Sylvia Acevedo, who just released her sophomore book, and I have it right here, The Trailblazer's Playbook. Let's pick up Sylvia now and learn more.
Hey there. Hi, Kara. How are you?
Oh,
Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And you wrote a book, a playbook for trailblazers. So you're going to make it a lot easier for all the folks coming behind you, coming behind me. What inspired you to write this book?
The reason I wanted to write it was really to break it down. It's not just a memoir. I didn't write it to tell my story. I wrote it to help people tell their story.
You know what I loved about this book when I was reading it? It didn't feel like a memoir. It felt like I was having a conversation with you. It felt like we were sitting down talking. And one of the things that you mentioned early in the book, you talk about moving to a new neighborhood and how your mother made a decision, a very deliberate decision to move the family to a neighborhood with paved streets. How do you think that decision changed the trajectory of your life?
We were challenged financially. And there was even a period in time where we had to live with family members. So there were 11 people in one bathroom.
11.
Wow. Yeah, and one bathroom. It was, but we didn't have any resources. And so finally, when my father got a job, we could afford a rent house on a dirt street. And I actually liked that neighborhood. There were a ton of kids. There was people to play with. But unfortunately, it was the last meningitis epidemic that swept in through America. And many people died. And my younger sister, who was really the brightest of us all, fell very ill. And up until then, my mom had been very, I wouldn't say subservient, but much more deferential to my father. But at that point, she became the mama bear.
Wow.
And as everyone knows, if mama ain't happy, nobody's
happy.
And so she noticed that the only neighborhoods where the meningitis epidemic swept through were the dirt street neighborhoods like ours. And then she began investigating, and it turned out my father had been in the military. And so with the help of my uncle, they applied for and got a mortgage in a neighborhood where the streets were paved. That was totally different, as I was used to being with Apodaca, Garcia, Sanchez, Gomez, and I went to Glemboski, Schrant, Wallace. It was a very different environment. But, it was really challenging. But because of that, I was able to have access to programs that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Right.
And now I know there was a lot more what we call social capital there. And my mother made such a strategic decision that to live there where we would have access and opportunities that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So, that concept of social capital is so important in the United States. If you are from other countries where the education system is nationalized, you kind of know what the rules are. But in the United States, it's all local.
It is.
It's local. And so it could be very different just a few streets away if it's a different school district. So if you really want the best for your kid is to really find out where are the best resources and support. And in the U.S., we call that social capital, the networks. But the other thing is in the U.S. too, you almost have to be an education Sherpa. Because to have gone through the system is to know what you need to do. So when you're experiencing it for the first time, it can be very difficult to understand and to navigate. So that's why this concept of social capital, knowing someone who knows the rules, knows the ropes, and can open up doors that you don't even know exist.
Yeah.
And so when we moved to that neighborhood, doors of opportunity opened up that we didn't even know existed. And like for me, the part of that was the Girl Scouts.
Even in your work with the Girl Scouts, you've done a lot to usher in changes to STEM entrepreneurship. What are some of the lessons that you can share around transformation?
So, when you read my book, you'll learn a lot about clarity, courage, conviction. So, that clarity of what is it you're doing, the courage, like if you know how to create opportunity, you have courage because you can do things because you're like, I know I can do that. I'll break it down to smaller pieces, ask for help, I'll go do that. And then conviction is when you hear the no or things don't work your way, you have failures. What's the conviction to pull forward? So you need all of those when you're leading and transforming, but you need the fourth one too, which is communication.
You have a knack for turning no into opportunity. Let's talk about that.
So I have to thank the Girl Scouts for that. There's two things in my life that really were really changed, and that were the muscles I developed from selling Girl Scout cookies. So my troop leader saw that I came from a monolingual Spanish-speaking household. We were challenged with money, so she knew the Girl Scout cookie program would be my way to earn money to do all the things I wanted to do. She told me I had to sell a lot of cookies, which seemed so many. But then she helped me break it down, which was when you have a goal or a dream, break it down into smaller pieces. And then when you break it down into smaller pieces, work really hard. And when you run into trouble, ask for help. And for all of us probably listening to this podcast and to you, everyone, we know how to do that. But when you come from near poverty or poverty, there are people that know how to do that. And everything seems like so big. And you don't know how to break it down to smaller steps. So with that, I remember I just was like, that's how people make their dreams come true. That's how they do it. So that was the one. So I began creating opportunity with that muscle. But the other muscle was never walk away from a sale until you hear no 3 times.
Okay.
And so, the first person that said no, I remember standing in front of her thinking, troop leader Mrs. Provine says, never walk away from the sale until you hear no 3 times. So you learn how to ask the question a different way. And then she still said no, and I asked it yet another way. And so she finally said yes, and I was like, yes. But that began teaching me persistence, really perseverance, but resilience. But also, I didn't realize, but it was also teaching me how to find common ground.
What are you learning right now?
So I'm right now reading a lot of history because, as they say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Reading about history, about when we've had bubbles, when you have technology that really accelerates things and changes things at so many levels. And I'm so curious about that because around the world, we've had so many people move from rural to urban in an unprecedented fashion. And so many of them are also really eager and they have the drive, and AI is only going to help them and us.
So as we bring our journey to an end here in this Waymo, what advice would you give to young girls to blaze their trail?
So I always say, take more risks. So dream big and act boldly.
Yes. And that's not just for young girls, I should say. I think that's for everyone.
That is for everyone.
Yes.
It is. Take more risks.
Of all ages.
Of all ages.
And I really do hope that everyone picks up your new book, because there are so many gems in here on how to navigate various situations, whether you're talking about rejection, navigating the no's. But again, for those who don't have the opportunity to spend time with you, this book is the conversation. It feels like having a conversation with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you.